going, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Marathon Prep. So today we're doing something pretty cool. We are at a location called Run Lab, which is in Austin, Texas, and we are going to do two things today. One, a run assessment, and then two, metabolic testing, being VO2 max, lactate threshold. So we're gonna get some really good data from today that we can implement to our training moving forward. So let's head in and do the tests. This marathon prep is our way of helping you reach your goals by showing you what we are doing to accomplish ours. Throughout this series, leading up to the Buffalo, New York Marathon, we will provide you the tools, resources, and knowledge to PR your next race. Training as a hybrid athlete has taught me so much about endurance, from marathons, an Ironman triathlon, and 100-mile ultra trail races. I'm now setting the goal to run a sub 250 marathon. It's time to lean in and go one more. So this past weekend, we went to Run Lab, which is a facility here in Austin, Texas, to do two things primarily. One, go through a run assessment, going over body mechanics and running form and efficiencies, and two, metabolic testing. And through the metabolic testing, I really wanted to identify one data point, and that was lactate threshold or anaerobic threshold. We also identified a few other markers such as VO2 max, and working with our team was a great experience. And I highly recommend, if you don't have a facility in your local area like this, to work with Run Lab. They have and offer virtual services that you can get your running form and biomechanics and efficiencies analyzed and then make improvements upon. Runners will always experience some sort of injuries over time. It's just the name of the game. But how do we minimize that? Getting our running form analyzed and becoming more efficient. So that is one of the things that we did with Run Lab. And that was really cool. The way it started was they went over kind of a body analysis, and one of the things they identified right off the bat was my left leg is a bit longer, and in that case, what's happening is my right leg is trying to overcompensate, and that's causing some issues. I also have a really tight right hip.
You do have a little bit of limited hip internal rotation. External, you look great. You obviously have some tightness up and through the rectus femoris, which is the quad muscle that attaches both to the knee, down at the patella, but also up at the hip. Mm-hmm. So it's both a hip flexor and a knee extensor. So that guy was a little tender when I poked on it.
On both sides or just one side?
Just on that side in particular.
Okay.
And then your TFL on that right side was also a little bit tender when I was poking around at it.
Which one is probably from this past ultra prep and specifically Rocky Raccoon, but it's affecting my gait and it's affecting my extension through my hip, which isn't allowing me to really open up during these faster paced workouts that we'll be doing a lot of moving forward.
You think about the time that you're spending on a bike, running, sleeping, sitting, all of your time is spent here, right? So everything can get really tight in the front of your hip, and it isn't always about strengthening that. Sometimes you have to balance range of motion between front and back and strength between front and back. Mm-hmm. And so if you're working on strengthening something that's already short and tight, that can create even more of that issue. And so you're on the right path thinking about creating mobility there, but sometimes stretching is not super effective at that. Sometimes you need to strengthen the backside to be able to hold the pelvis in a neutral position so this can even relax it all. And so looking at your gait mechanics and the way that you move is the other layer we need to really figure out, where are the range of motion problems, but where are the strength deficits front to back to balance everything.
We hopped on a treadmill. I ran barefoot and I ran with shoes, and we videoed that. And again, through the assessment and watching the video back with Dr. Bauer, we realized there's some things going wrong that we can fix, and that can improve not just running efficiency and becoming faster, but reduce risk of injury. And that is one of the key takeaways that I wanted from this running assessment. And I hope that you guys can take away as well and find a resource in your local area or someone or some sort of organization that can identify these to make you a better, safer runner.
If I just had you lay on your side and do a bunch of exercises lifting your hip to the side, that's not going to magically make your running look better.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure, yes, we're strong to begin with, and some runners aren't strong in that plane. But we also need to make sure that we're focusing on the running mechanics so that carries over.
Okay.
And there are studies out there that say if you just work on the strength, it doesn't carry over to the running mechanics.
Without me going to someone and having them watch my form and video it, I would have never, ever realized some of these changes just in my body, going over what is here without moving. Now that was all cool. That was all really good data, but what I really was interested in was the metabolic testing.
So what we're gonna do is, it's gonna be a 4-phase protocol, and we're gonna take samples after each phase, after each duration and intensity, and figure out how much lactic acid you're producing, how efficient at recovering from that you are, how efficient that aerobic system is at utilizing that lactic acid as energy and fuel.
Now I do want to point out that a lot of people think that the aerobic and the anaerobic systems within your body operate independently. Aerobic being that your system is utilizing oxygen very efficiently. And typically when you're in an aerobic state, in terms of running, you are running easier, slower, your minute per mile pace is higher. For me, it's like 8:30, 9 minutes. And that's like your zone 2 training. Your body at that intensity, which is low, can utilize oxygen very efficiently. And then when you think of an anaerobic state or anaerobic training, it's at a higher intensity, faster paces. Your body doesn't have as much oxygen to use. And in that case, it's then producing lactate in the blood or lactic acid.
You're gonna produce it, right? I mean, we could go from any seated position. Our aerobics or our anaerobic system is the first energy system that works. It shoots out a byproduct. So lactic acid is always there. One system doesn't shut off and the other one starts. So it's always being produced, it's always there. We need to work efficiently with that. So I describe it like your aerobic system is your foundation, and then your anaerobic system is the house that you're putting on top of it. Okay, you can't build a giant house without a strong foundation underneath of it.
So VO2 max, what is VO2 max? It is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use during exercise. And what is anaerobic threshold? It is the highest exercise intensity that you can sustain for a prolonged period of time without lactate substantially building up in your blood. Now, what is the goal of what we're trying to achieve in a marathon build or block, especially with a time in mind? The goal is that we can perform at a higher percentage of our VO2 max with minimum lactate accumulation. If you take 2 people and they have the same VO2 max, but one person works on their fitness more, they're doing more tempo work and threshold work and they're logging more miles, even though those 2 people have the same VO2 max, one person might have a higher anaerobic threshold because of the training they have done. They can perform more efficiently at a higher percentage of their VO2 max than the other. They will be a better, more efficient, faster runner. So keep that in mind. And the cool part about this is that through certain training protocols, we can increase and improve our anaerobic threshold. That is the best part. That is one of the coolest parts of a marathon prep or running, is that we can build and improve certain systems, aerobic and anaerobic, to become faster. We're gonna see my body fat percentages right here.
Are you in normal state of hydration right now?
I am very hydrated.
Okay. So you're familiar with this. Don't squeeze it too hard, just hold it straight out.
Yep.
Okay, I'll hit start. What's your resting heart rate usually?
46, 47.
647. Plus or minus 2. So
14.6. I don't want to call bullshit, but I might call bullshit. So with the metabolic testing, there were a few phases. And the way it worked was we would do an interval on the treadmill at different distances and paces. And after each one of those intervals, we would test my blood for how much lactic acid or lactate was in the blood at that time. So naturally, at higher intensities for longer periods of time, there's going to be more lactate produced in the blood because our oxygen can't clear it fast enough. So we started off with a warm-up. That was a 7:45 minute per mile pace for 10 minutes.
what we want in that first phase is a lactic acid level between 3 and 5. So that 745 pace, you produced about 2 millimoles of lactic acid.
Okay.
Right? So that's like your energy system, your aerobic system is just utilizing that lactic acid and just burning through it, which is awesome. That's good. Just means we need to push it harder.
This is the stuff I guess at based on paces, perceived effort, and I do my aerosol pseudoscientific calculations, and this is going to give us all the hard data.
So really, because I've spent so much time aerobic base building the last couple of months, my system's very efficient right now at clearing lactic acid.
Yes.
And then we went into 5 phases. Phase 1 was 7:15 minute per mile pace for 10 minutes, and then we rested. We rested until I cleared majority of the lactic acid out of my blood and my heart rate came back to between 65 and 75 beats per minute. Lots of blood and sweat going in today, literally. Phase 2 was 6:20 minute per mile pace for a mile and a half. Phase 3, 6:20 minute per mile pace at 0.45 of a mile. Phase 4 was a 5:40 minute per mile pace at 0.45 of a mile. And phase 5 was a 5 minute per mile pace for 2 minutes.
It's hard, but
Just breathe. You see your heart rate
I
there?
think we're going to get good data from this because you really ran at probably about a 98% of your max effort.
And what we identified after this testing was my VO2 max is currently 59 and my anaerobic threshold is a 6:20 minute per mile pace. What the results have identified is because over the last couple of years of all this endurance training, triathlons, ultras, marathons, a lot of zone 2, zone 3, aerobic base building, running below my max aerobic heart rate, I've built this big engine that can utilize oxygen and clear blood lactate very efficiently. And then over the years as well, I've incorporated a lot of speed work and tempo workouts. So my fitness has been built over time and time and time, and it takes time. You got to be patient with it, right? You're not going to build this fitness overnight, but if you're patient and you just keep stacking workouts, you're consistent with your easy miles and your speed work. Easy miles and your speed work. Now, I'm not saying that you should be comparing your results to mine, and I shouldn't be comparing my results to yours. It's just to show how we can utilize data to improve upon our goals and training. And we'll take this and we'll utilize this, and I'll work with Jeff and we'll refine our training program moving forward into Buffalo, utilizing these zones and this anaerobic threshold to improve upon. So what I'm trying to get across in this is, if anything, if you can find a resource or place to improve and identify weaknesses in your form and efficiencies, that would be awesome. But as well as understanding what VO2 max is and your anaerobic threshold. And that will provide us some information as we start building speed workouts throughout this prep that you can utilize to PR your next race.
Let's go. Let's roll. It's your
So this morning is a nice, beautiful, windy day outside of Austin, Texas, and we are doing a lactate threshold, anaerobic threshold workout. So it was a 2-mile warm-up. I ran from BPN HQ to the track, and now we're gonna do 8 sets. Each set is a 1,000 meter repeat at a 550 minute per mile pace with a 1 minute, 60-second rest in between. And we will strictly track these rest periods, and there will be a cool down after these 8 intervals. The goal for this workout is a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. So we're doing, our 1,000 meter repeat, rest for 1 minute, 1,000 meter repeat, which will be a little over, 2 minutes, obviously. But that's about the ratio you want for these anaerobic or lactate threshold workouts. 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. So let's get in the workout.
I'm about to take you there. I'm lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit.
5 seconds. Splits are fast.
I was made for speed, cause I was born fast. Born to run, born to ride. Keep on flying till my hands touch the sky. Born to be wild and free. Keep on going, yeah, there's no stopping me. I was born for this. 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 Out the gate like a bucking bull. Got my horns up, I'm unstoppable. Got you spin around, it's a do-si-do. Gotta hold on tight like a rodeo. If you wanna get down, get yourself elevated up off the ground. Yeah. Then come along with me to the nitty and the gritty of the country. I was cut from steel. I was built for grit. I was made to fly. Cause I was born for this. Yeah. Born to run, born to ride. Keep on flying till my hands touch the sky. Born to be wild and free. Keep on going, yeah, there's no stopping me. I was born for this. Play hard, work harder. Built tough, made stronger. I was cut from steel. I was built for grit. I was made to fly. Cause I was born for this. Yeah. Born to run, born to ride. Keep
All right, so that's the workout. 8 repeats, 1,000 meters. Got a 550 minute per mile pace, 1 minute rest. When we get back to the office, we'll talk all about anaerobic threshold, lactate threshold, and what that means to you in your training. So I'm gonna explain how you can incorporate some anaerobic or lactate threshold workouts into your program. We're gonna talk about 3 things. 1, volume, intensity, and density. Volume is how much work you're doing throughout that workout. The intensity is either how high your heart rate is or how fast that pace is. And then density, how close those intervals are together. So how big or little are those rest periods. For this type of workout, we want a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. So if I'm doing a, say, 2-minute interval, I'm gonna rest for 1 minute. This morning, we had a little bit longer than, it's probably more like a 3-to-1 ratio, or even like a 3.5-to-1 ratio. But this is, I'd say, the gold standard 2-to-1 ratio, work to rest. Now, blood lactate will be influenced by volume, so how much work you're doing, and intensity. So as we increase the volume and we increase the intensity, blood lactate will increase. So after, say, my first interval, my blood lactate will be at a certain level, but by the 8th interval, my blood lactate will be a whole lot higher. So what we're looking at right here is if we're doing these intervals, we have, our warm up, and we have an interval rest. Interval rest. Interval rest. Right here, what's happening is intensity is increasing, blood lactate is increasing, and then during the rest period, right here, we want to recover a little bit. So our heart rate will decrease. We'll start clearing some of that blood lactate, but not completely. So then second iteration, we'll ramp it back up. So we're accumulating this blood lactate over time and towards the end of the workout to kind of teach our body how to utilize it and how to remove it. So it's all about building this efficient engine through volume, intensity, and density. So I am a firm believer in strength training for endurance athletes, especially in a training block. Now, strength training doesn't have to be where you come in and you're training at 90 to 95% of your 1 rep max. You're not trying to destroy yourself. What we're trying to do is maintain strength, mainly to minimize the risk of injury. And for me, training lower body and strength does that very, very well in terms of strengthening the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, and facilitating mobility through some of these great multi-joint compound movements. So today what I'm doing is a complex of leg extensions, leg curls, barbell squats. I'm not going above 225 pounds on barbell squats. So I'll do that superset about 4 times, and then I'm gonna finish with walking barbell lunges. Now I like stacking my lower body strength training day on the same day I'm doing my tempo, threshold, speed workouts. I did this last year during marathon prep and enjoyed it. Thursday, you know, when you wake up, you definitely feel Wednesday's work, but this morning we get 1,000 meter repeats. This evening, after the workday is done, now we're training lower body strength, and that will be my routine for this marathon prep. I will be training lower body strength once a week. So that wraps up week 2 of marathon prep, ending this one on a solid day of training, solid day of work. Hopefully you guys took a lot out of the anaerobic threshold, lactate threshold training, and how you can apply that to your routine, your program, and becoming more efficient, utilizing a higher percentage of your VO2 max. So, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Off no warm up. I'm gonna start out at 6-minute pace.
So yeah, I have a lot of athletes.
In the
that
jeans, too,
are
I love it.
triathletes
Oh, in
that
jeans
want
In the
too.
jeans.
Oh,
to
absolutely.
long on the run, they'll come to me and want to do a run test.
No? Rawr, I'm a lion, baby. Let's go.
This is it, thumbnail right here.
The idea that I used to be able to run 10K at this pace is just both disheartening and mind-boggling.
That's wild.
Woo. 2 minutes.
That ain't bad.
Here, Pinky.
Son of a bitch.
It's gonna sting. Hey.
God damn, Nick, that hurt. It was just the last 20 seconds that were bad.
Any blood coming out of there? Hang on.
I'm wheezing.
Change of plans. I'm actually not running the marathon in Buffalo, New York. I am the coach. Jeff is running the marathon.
And if you think you can't run a 4-hour marathon because you're stuck at 5 hours, you're going to break 4 hours in the marathon. If you don't think you can break 3 hours in the marathon because you're stuck at 3:30, well, let's go figure it out. It's probably not nearly as unrealistic as you think. You know what? I don't even want to say think. I think fear. I don't think it's as unrealistic as you fear. Let's take fear out of it, and let's take audacious hope and desire and drive, and let's put that in place.
Thanks for watching the video, and if you enjoyed this one, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And while you're here, click episode 1 of Marathon Prep, episode 1 right here. Don't skip this one before going into the next. We'll see you guys.